死貓頌瓶中貓。死去的貓在繁忙時間搭地鐵，一排排的站滿了扶手電梯的左邊。貓在瓶子裏慢慢往下沉，太陽從水裏升起，銀色的魚群游過。Yeah, I was born in a particular place called Kowloon City in the Kowloon side of Hong Kong, and I grew up there. And it was very special because it still remains the smaller street with the old shops on the side, on the street level, and with a layout of many crisscross small streets. And it was where the famous Kai Tak airport was. It was famous for you having to land actually inside the low-rise residential building, so foreign pilots love it. And I don't really miss Hong Kong, but I would miss my hometown, yes. It was when I went to university that the first time I left Kowloon City. I went to the Chinese University of Hong Kong and I studied in English literature. And the Chinese University of Hong Kong right now has become a battlefield. That is what I feel so sad and a bit agitated about these days. I started to write poetry in the university. I took a class by a poet and scholar from Taiwan. She's called Tu Jiaqi, and she taught us modern and contemporary Chinese poetry. And this class was special because it is only for non-Chinese majors. In the Chinese major part, they're doing sort of more traditional way, but in our class, we are very free and modern. And I have learned how to write very freely and express myself. So I started to write poetry back there. I am not very familiar with it, but I like it so much that I think I'm influenced by the way they treat imagery and especially how they end a poem, how they will leave something lingering, some emotion unsaid, and I think this is the part that would have influenced me. I can't speak for other poets, but I think, yeah, we do have a tradition of like more everyday in Hong Kong poetry. But actually, I'm trying to fight that sometimes. I guess I use more of imagery and I use a lot of breaking the logic of the sentences. But I do like the influence of American poetry. For example, I like Lawrence Ferlinghetti a lot. Yes. Actually, I'm trying to mix more of poetry in my prose. And I have started a mini project that is influenced by the pillow book in Japanese literature. That is, I write fractions of prose that is mainly consists of fragments of imageries and memories. But also in my poetry, I think I may have incorporated some prose elements in it because my form is quite free-flowing and I experiment the language every time I write a new poem. Yes, thanks to the IWP and the Robert Ho Foundation, I have the opportunity to work with two great translators. One is Mary King Bradley, the other is Jennifer Feely, and their translation were so great that it is much better than what I have expected that translations could be. And sometimes I translate myself, and sometimes I would write directly in English. And I found that very interesting because when I self-translate, it is still the Chinese me, but when I wrote directly in English, it is another person speaking. My dream would be I can be like here in IWP, that I can go from residency to residency, and my dream is to have my poetry and my stuff published, especially in English. And then I would dream of having Japanese translations, because I have so much Japanese influence in my work, and I would like the Japanese people to read my work. Before I came here, my bandmate was Jean Rees. She grew up in Dominica, and then she moved to England later. And I read her Voyage in the Dark and short stories collections like Tigers Are Better Looking before I came here. I love the candidness of her writing, and I can identify with her vagabond female characters in her fiction. Firstly is Tot vida Marcin Kiewicz's poetry. I love her poetry so much, so I have it here. And then it's Carlos Gamero's long fiction called The Islands. It is about the Falkland Wars. Tot vida's poetry is so beautiful and touching, and then Carlos's fiction is so intriguing, and he's crazily talented, so I love them. Because of the unrest nowadays in Hong Kong, my fellow poet and I are writing a lot about the movement. I didn't write a lot, but they write a lot of poetry about the movement, and I wrote a few. And I can't quite see the future of our lives, but I can foresee that we can write a lot of protests and grief and anger and sadness in our writing. But our lives are quite fairly uncertain at this point.